I'm Bob Trout. I've got a story here that I think is big, really big, because it's bound to have a terrific impact on business. I'm talking about a new market, a big new market, millions upon millions of new prospects with $15 billion to spend. That's right, I said $15 billion. That's a lot of money, isn't it? The surprising thing is that it's a fresh market, still full of opportunities. It grew up so fast, got so big in a hurry, that few of us realize its scope. Now, these days, nobody's likely to pass up chances to sell. And yet right here in our own front yard, there's a neglected market. There's money waiting to be spent. To get the story of this market, to be able to tell you the secret of selling the Negro, we did a lot of digging. We talked to leading businessmen, to customers, and to salesmen. We went to Washington, D.C. We set up cameras and other key points around the nation. And out of this all, there emerged a story, the story of a new market. Yes, this is the market we're talking about, the new Negro family. Their name is Wells or Wilson, Smith or Brown or Alexander or Breen. They live in Chicago, in Atlanta or New York, in Detroit, St. Louis, Los Angeles, any one of 1,000 cities and towns. All over the country, families such as this are enjoying new prosperity. They have new interests, new standards of living, a buying power they've never enjoyed before. They're good prospects for practically all types of goods and services. All too often, though, they're overlooked prospects. Why? Because of some good, valid reason? No. They're overlooked because of mistaken ideas, because of out-of-date ideas about how the Negro lives and how he buys.
Umbrella, she's up, whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. So what about black on black crime? A question that we hear a lot, especially when we're talking about, police profiling or shooting a black man and killing him, which is kind of ridiculous because you have a paid professional paid by taxpayer money. So, I go to work and my taxpayer dollars are going to this man who could stop me and shoot me and get away with it. And it's pretty ridiculous to compare those people with the same people who you call thugs. Because if that was the case, I would much rather those so-called thugs get my taxpayer dollars, because I know a lot of their problems come from economics. I don't know what the fuck this cop problem is. But okay, let's talk about black on black crime. What about black on black crime? Because, these people love to quote unquote statistics to you, talking about, well, hey, we're justified because of, look at these statistics. But, I'm going to need a source on these statistics, and we're going to have to start checking these people's sources who make these claims. And we have to be careful about, how they frame what they say. We have to pay attention to things like when they account for population and when they don't, when they're talking about statistics. For example, they'll say things like, well, more black people commit violent crimes, but white people will get shot by the cops more. White people are killed by the cops more than black people. Well, the first half of that statement, they account for population. But the second part of that statement, they say, well, white people are shot more by the cops. Well, that's not accounting for population. So you got to watch how they word it, because sometimes they will account for the population and sometimes they won't. But on top of that, I want to know exactly how they're getting these statistics, where they're getting it from. I need their sources. When they have these crime statistics, do it count people who are arrested, who are suspected, who are convicted, who are charged? Now, a lot of times when they are quoting these statistics, they are citing the FBI statistics, but the FBI itself describes its data as estimated and comes from voluntary reports from local law enforcement agencies. These same agencies were a number of them. When the Department of Justice, the DOJ, investigates them, they find racism in a lot of these places. So we got to trust what they voluntarily send in, if they send anything. You know, the FBI itself gives a disclaimer. It says the most detailed racial data have limits. They are confined to cases in which one person was killed and one person did the killing, which eliminated about 17% of homicides itself. So we're already starting from a flawed premise where you have to know who the suspect is, know the race of the suspect, and know the race of the victim. That's the only way they can get these statistics, for one. Then when you look at the data also, the last 30 years, crime has been down. Violent crime, violent victimization, and property crime have been down. But you're sitting here saying, well, black on black crime is skyrocketed. And then you go into Chicago as an example. Well, a lot of black people have never stepped foot in Chicago. I haven't even been within like 2 states of Chicago. So how is something in Chicago going to set in motion a law, something that affects black people throughout all of America, for something that is going on inside a specific area of Chicago? You know, you're saying that all black people in America are responsible for what a group of people are doing in Chicago. That is what you're saying. But the whole problem with the argument in itself is that there's a huge difference between black on black crime and non-black on black crime. The person who is committing a black on black crime is going to jail. He's getting a life sentence for killing another black man. If a black man shoots down a black man and he gets caught, he's doing 40 years plus. If a cop shoots a black man, he's not doing a day. If a regular person kills a black man, he may or may not go down. We don't know. That's the fucking problem. We know if a black person gets caught killing another black person, that's 2 black lives gone, not just one. But, you know, at the end of the day, as a black man, I have got to say this. Our people can't afford to be out here killing each other. Just the situation in itself, we have too many enemies to be enemies of each other. And I never understood it personally. Why rob from another person who's stuck in the same position that you're stuck in? And neither one of y'all put each other in that position, but you turn your hostility towards each other, and instead of getting yourselves out of the situation, or at least the root cause of why you're in that situation, attacking it together so you can solve everybody's problems, so everybody can eat. I never understood why we turned around and tried to rob and hurt each other. And the problem is the position that we are in America. It makes it stick out even more. We are the only people who are going to be able to change our situation. Ain't nobody going to stand up for us but us. And, you know, we have to start attacking the root of all of these problems. Just the whole economic side of the game would alleviate a lot of these problems, because that's where a lot of the issues in the black community comes from. And, you know, I see these kids, I mean, you go to school, go to terrible schools and can't afford shoes, can't afford clothes. And then, you know, you get older, you see your family can't really eat and the lights are getting cut off. And the only way to make money is by doing this. We focus on black economics. We solve a lot of problems with education. And we solve a lot of problems with employment. We have to solve the relationship between black men and black women. A lot of this stuff starts as children from the mother and father. We have to get our psyche together. And to be killing each other is not going to help in a time like this, and it hurts us in a time like this. It's not only one black life that is lost when you kill another brother. You're going to lose your life too, because you're going down for 40 years. You know, you're not a fucking cop. You're not some white dude killing a black dude. You're a black dude killing a black dude. You're going to jail. So it's over for both of y'all.
The truth of the matter is that the Negro lives pretty much the same as other folks. He buys pretty much the same way, too. But just the same, a lot of old doubts and opinions keep cropping up over and over again.
I don't like to do business with Negroes. They're drifters. You can't keep track of them.
Yes, although a lot of people think that way, the truth is that 1 out of every 3 Negro families living in cities today owns its own home. That figure comes directly from the United States Bureau of Census.
Maybe so, but Negroes are poor credit risks.
Not more of a credit risk than any other group. Actually, the Negro homebuyer meets his payments faithfully, often more faithfully than other race groups in the same economic level. That's the information we got from people who ought to know, the National Association of Real Estate Boards.
Well, maybe, but I've always heard that Negroes buy shoddy, poor-quality merchandise.
No, it's just the other way around. According to leading researchers, in proportion to population and income, Negroes buy more quality products than any other comparable United States group. You see, there are a lot of confused notions about the Negro customer. But when you dig right down and find out about them, they just don't hold water. Negroes own homes. They meet their payments faithfully. They buy good brands of merchandise. So why let a lot of old-fashioned ideas hurt profits? Take a look at the real facts. Here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, some amazing facts and figures about this new market have been uncovered. For a first-hand report, we would like to take you directly to the United States Department of Commerce to hear this story from the Secretary of Commerce himself. Here is the Honorable Sinclair Weeks, the Secretary of Commerce of the United States.
In the Department of Commerce, we are constantly alert to trends that mean a healthier national economy, better business for the nation as a whole. Recently, we have been interested in a rising young market, one that represents a huge potential for goods and services. I'm referring to the new Negro market. The tremendous buying power of this group is backed, of course, by an increased earning power. The average Negro family's income is at a record high. In fact, since 1939, it has increased more than the average income of all other Americans. Just take a look at a few figures. An official Department of Commerce report shows that at least 1/3 of the Negroes living in cities earn from $2,000 to $5,000 a year. Today, the average Negro wage earner brings home a paycheck 4 times larger than the one he collected in 1939. As a whole, the Negro market has a total income of about $15 billion every year. And after taxes, Negro families still have many billions of dollars to spend. Here is a buying power that cannot help but have a tremendous effect on our national economy and on business prosperity in general. When these dollars are spent for a wide range of goods, services, and employment, business everywhere is bound to feel the impact.
This new buying power has resulted in a class Negro market, a profitable, above-average income group of consumers. For example, the nation's largest newspaper and magazine research organization, Daniel Starch and Staff, reports these significant figures. More than 51% of the readers of Ebony magazine have a record player in their homes. Almost 64% own a television set. And almost 78% enjoy the convenience of an electric refrigerator. It is also a fact, and this is from the magazine The Food Field Reporter, that Negroes spend almost $3 billion a year for food alone. Per capita, they buy more cosmetics, drugs, and toiletries than anyone else in the country. And their children are better educated, too, because since 1930, enrollment in Negro colleges is up 2,500%. But really, to recognize the importance of this class Negro market, we must realize that something has been happening economically in our country. People are on the move. The population is shifting. The makeup of metropolitan populations today is different than it was just a few short years ago. To give you a better idea of what we mean, we set up several cameras, candid cameras, in a number of shopping locations. Take a look at these shoppers. Notice what a large proportion of them are Negroes. What's the reason? It's simply this. Negro families are moving into the cities where there are more job opportunities. Here they find occupations with more prestige and security, jobs that pay more money. As a result, Negro families today often make up the largest part of central city consumer prospects. A shoe store in Chicago's Loop, for example, reports that more than 50% of its customers are Negroes. In another case, a drugstore located at a transfer point in a non-Negro neighborhood finds that its Negro customers total 25%. The trend is plain. The new Negro families today are moving into more populated areas, to the cities, where there are more stores, more buying opportunities. Since 1940, in San Francisco alone, the Negro market has increased by 89%. In Chicago, by 81%. Houston, Texas, 45%. Philadelphia, 50%. The impact of this new buying force is so tremendous that actually in 14 major United States markets, a product cannot be number one without Negro support. A product must have the backing of this big new buying power to be a leader in the field. What do you have to sell? Chewing gum or cars? Toothpaste or transportation? Whatever it is, here are millions of prospects, and these prospects are everywhere. Negro customers can no longer be pigeonholed. They cannot be classified as prospects who trade only in certain stores, certain neighborhoods. Today, Negroes shop downtown. They shop in supermarkets. They shop in small neighborhood stores. They'll buy from anyone who wants to sell to them. But we all know that before you can sell to customers, you've got to get to know them. You must understand something about them. What do the Negro customers buy? Why do they buy? How do you sell to them? Let's find out. Let's hear the opinion of men who have spent a lifetime studying the buying habits of customers the world over. Here is what sales psychologists have to say about selling to the Negro.
All right, so we back on the forecast. Now, when we talk about the issues in the black community, we have got to get into the issues between black men and black women. Because the first influence that all of us have is in our family, in our homes. And if we are growing up in homes with single parents and broken homes and dysfunctional families, then that plays a big part of the way we think. That plays a huge role in the psyche that we have. Now, we hear all of these statistics about how black people are having children out of wedlock. 72% single mother rate in the black community. But first, we have to watch these statistics as well, because it just means that you're not married. If you're not married, you're a single mother. It doesn't take into account some people just don't get married because they don't agree with marriage or religion or, just the social construct, or they don't want the state involved in their business, or whatever personal beliefs that they may have, and they're just against marriage. And on the other hand, you have married couples where the father, rapes a 12-year-old daughter for years and is finally caught, and the mother pleads for the father to come home to be a stable support system for his boys, and the court allows that.
A Montana district judge is under fire for a sentence that some believe doesn't match the crime. Judge John McKeon handed down a 30-year suspended sentence to a man who was found guilty of repeatedly raping his 12-year-old daughter. Martin Blake will serve a 60-day jail sentence plus probation as his punishment. Counting time already served, the eastern Montana man could spend a total of 43 days in jail. In the wake of his controversial decision, more than 40,000 people have signed a Change.org petition calling for the impeachment of Judge McKeon. The petition says in part, quote, "The victim only had the justice system on her side, and it failed her. Judge McKeon failed her. It is time to start punishing the judges who let these monsters walk our streets." McKeon, who is retiring next month after 22 years as a state judge, is defending his decision. He said that the psychological evaluation of Blake found that he could safely be treated and be supervised in the community. McKeon also noted that the support of the man's family played a role in his decision. The victim's mother and grandmother wrote letters on Blake's behalf, asking that he not be sentenced to prison. One person wrote that he was a good father for 12 years, and another said he was not a monster, but a man who made a mistake. Nobody spoke on behalf of the 12-year-old girl during the sentencing hearing.
Me, I would personally rather have the healthy relationship married or unmarried. Because 50% of all marriages end in divorce. So there is a large demographic of somewhere out here of people who is single parents as well. While we're all pointing fingers at the black community, you really need to start paying attention to your own communities, because yours will be at 70-some% very soon. And when I talk about this, I don't mean to make it a black issue. It is very much so an Americanized issue. The rates of single motherhood is rising amongst all groups of people, not just blacks. It just hit us first. And today, American men are saying, yo, fuck marriage, because they're scared to death of family court. They seen so many other men get destroyed by family court. And, well, you know, a lot of women say, well, you don't have anything. Well, that means you can't even defend yourself if you have to go to court. So a lot of people, a lot of men of all races is avoiding that whole situation. So again, we can't just say it's the black community who are having kids out of wedlock. But the fact that as black people, my brothers and sisters, we are in a situation where we cannot afford to have this breakdown of our family. We had a strong family structure and still suffer from heavy racism. So to lose that is devastating. And, you know, we end up in this game where we blame each other. We point the finger and say, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. And when the American government starved black people out of jobs, starved them out economically as a whole, they came to black people and said, well, hey, we will give the women and children a place to stay. We'll give them food. We'll give them health care. But you kick the man out of the fucking house. I bet not see a man anywhere near this establishment, or you're done. Black people were in a situation where they said, hey, well, I guess we'll just have to take it. Now, that's a whole nother debate in itself, whether they should have or shouldn't have. But that was a tough situation that they were in. And then, you know, here comes feminism telling black women, well, you don't need men anyway. You an independent woman. You a strong black woman. And start feeding them that stuff about not needing a man to have a kid. You need a man to have a kid. I wouldn't be so arrogant as to say I don't need a woman to have a kid. I know I need a mother for my child, just like my child would need a father. And, you know, women bought into that whole feminist mindset coming off of the welfare state. And the irony is, before the welfare state, we had the lowest rate of single parents. After it, we had the highest. The day before the welfare state came into existence, we had the most families. We were married the most, had the strongest core. And they passed this initiative. And now look, what happened? And, you know, a lot of men do blame women because, well, let me say this. It's no getting around it. Not only did nature give women the power of reproduction, the laws of this country that we live in give women the power. As a man, you would tell me, hey, you don't want to have a baby, don't have sex, or get a vasectomy. be a virgin or mutilate your penis. Those are the options that you give me. But that's no different from me saying, well, shit, if you didn't want to get pregnant, if you didn't want to have a deadbeat daddy, close your legs next time. You know, or somebody being against abortion and saying, well, if you don't want to have a baby, keep your legs closed. That's the same thing you're saying to us. And when we do have sex, make sure you wear your condoms. And brothers, that's important. Always bring your own condoms. Always wear your condoms. Destroy your sperm. All right, the court systems have said you are responsible for every drop of sperm that leaves your body. If some girl finds some of your sperm on the damn sidewalk, she could pick it up, impregnate herself, and you would be liable for child support. Destroy your sperm.
Tonight, Local 2 investigates how a Houston fertility clinic could make a man a father of twins, and he says all of this happened without his permission.
So now the father has filed an unusual lawsuit saying that his girlfriend took sperm samples from their bedroom, and he never knew that she was using those samples to become pregnant after they'd broken up. Local 2 investigator Stephen Dean digs into how this happened.
Actually, I couldn't believe it could be done. I was very, very devastated.
A 36-year-old telecommunications manager, Joe Pressel, says he never thought of having a family, and his religion would never allow him to go to a fertility clinic. So how could his girlfriend become pregnant with his sperm at this clinic on the Katy Freeway 3 months after they broke up?
I couldn't believe that this fertility clinic would actually do this without my consent, without me even being there.
Pressel is suing Advanced Fertility Center, saying his girlfriend was bringing them his semen behind his back so her egg could be fertilized in vitro, a medical procedure that resulted in twin boys being born. Now he has to pay to raise them.
She would always take, the condom, and she would, run off out of the room, and I just didn't think anything of it. And I didn't think that anyone could use a condom and bring it to a clinic to get an in vitro.
For a man, it's very terrifying, particularly if you're not planning to have a family. Any woman, I guess, could go and do this if they're in a relationship.
Attorney Jason Gibson says the girlfriend went to court and won child support after blood tests proved the twins really do belong to Pressel. He's suing the fertility clinic and OmniMed Laboratories, where they admit the in vitro fertilization was a success for the twins. They say many men don't like visiting these clinics, so samples are sometimes delivered for these procedures.
We do know that his insurance was billed for it, and we do know that his credit card was used to pay for the visit.
But women, y'all have to understand that y'all have 12 different forms of birth control that is more reliable than the condom. And brothers, again, always use your own condoms, because women can poke holes in them or whatever. But condoms, at the end of the day, aren't as effective. And I think the man and the woman should both be using condoms and the goddamn pull-up method on top of that. The man should be using birth control and the woman should be using birth control. But, my problem is here. After you have sex and may have had an accident, even past all of those precautions you have taken, now men have zero options from here. Women still have different levels of options. You can get the morning after pill. I can't make you take a morning after pill. It's illegal for me to make you take it. They'll get me for murder. If you do go ahead and get pregnant, but you don't want to carry through the pregnancy, you can say, well, hey, I'm going to get an abortion. Whether you believe is right or is wrong, you have that option available to you. Men have no such option available to them to get an abortion, a financial abortion or anything like that. We can just sign away our rights. You can't sign away the rights of a child. And, here's the double standard with that. If I get a girl pregnant and I want her to keep it, but she does not want to keep it, can I make her keep it? No. She can say, fuck you, nigga, I don't want to be a mom, and get an abortion. And I can't say or do anything about it. But if I get a girl pregnant and I don't want her to have it, but she does, it's nothing I can do about it. You're going to live up to your responsibilities. But both men and women need to take more precautions. You know, if I can go back to the 1930s and tell the men that, you know, women will be giving it up more easier, they'll be more promiscuous, you know, they would have been all excited. But it's not all it's cracked up to be. It sounds way better on paper than it does on real life. And, you know, we need to understand that we have to have stable environments for our children. I think people shouldn't even be having kids until they're at least 30. You know, just look at it like this. Say you start dating when you're 12 or 13. So from 12 or 13 to the age of 30, which is about 18 years, I'll say 20 years. You know, you tried to date around and had all of the experience that you're going to have. And now that people are living to 80, 90 years old, from the age of 30 to the age of 90, 60 years, you're going to be with this one person. So that's 20 years compared to 60 years. It is no big rush. Take your time and pick the partner you want. And giving yourself time to have experience and to date various people, see the things you like, the things you don't like. Giving yourself time to develop a career, to get yourself stable and financially at a certain level. Just to get that thought of, what am I missing, out of your head. You know, this is for men and women. You know, women have this biological clock going off in their heads, which tell them by 30 they have to have a kid already. I mean, but at least the age of 28 to 30, I still say for you 30. And you need to be with somebody for at least 5 years, in my opinion. You know, just to experience what it's like to be with them through the highs and the lows. And you don't even have to just sit on your hands for that time. You can go travel, go have experiences, go do things that you can't do once you have kids. Because once you have them, they are now the main priority. You can't just go off and have trips and do things that you can't bring your kids along with you. There'll be plenty of time to do the stuff with your kids. And I believe you should be living together for at least 3 years. Because, I mean, you living together the first year, everything is great, you know. I love living with you after the first year. After that second year, those little things that that person does, like it may be putting a cup on the table with no coaster, or leaving their shoes in the floor, or their socks in the floor, not washing their dishes. It just be those little small things that kind of irritate you, but, you know, hey, I still love this person. By the third year, that shit is probably going to piss you off. After 3 years living together, you'll know if you be able to spend the next 18 to 20 years, to 25 years living with somebody in a healthy manner, because you have to have 2 healthy parents. That's the ideal circumstances, so that a kid knows how a man treats a woman and how a woman treats a man, and how they settle their arguments or disagreements like adults and talk about it. Because even when you have this married couple and they fight all the time, guess what? Your kid sees that and grows up to attract people who he's going to argue with all the time because he thinks it's normal. So while I'm saying that some of these statistics may be exaggerated, at the same time, we definitely need to do better and be more calculated about how we approach these things, about how we build our community. Because as the black community, we have to build ourselves up and protect ourselves. And it starts with the family. It starts in the home. That's the first education the child gets. They are the people who determines how that child gets educated. And it starts there. So we have a lot of work to do.
The secret of selling to the Negro is expressed in one word. That word is recognition. Now, there's nothing unusual about that. People want to be recognized. They need recognition. That's basic in all of us. But perhaps because he's had so little of it, the Negro needs even more. He needs to feel important and appreciated. This need is a very real and important one. It shows up even in many of the Negro's shopping habits. Anyone who sells or wants to sell to the Negro customer should know about some of these habits. 3 habits in particular play a big part in every sales transaction. To begin with, most Negroes buy by brand. They ask for products by name. They're quick to turn down off-brands. Do you wonder why? Well, listen to what this customer is thinking.
That last hat I bought just didn't hold up at all.
You see, for a long time, the Negro has been sold a lot of shoddy, second-class merchandise. So now he asks for name brands in order to make sure he gets his money's worth. Buying by brand, that's the first important Negro buying habit. Now for the second. The Negro buys good quality merchandise. Symbols of quality and prestige are very important to the Negro customer. This woman, for example, is buying fine crystalware. But she is also buying the admiration and approval of her friends and relatives. Listen to her thoughts.
My, isn't it beautiful? I can hardly wait to show it to Sally and Joan.
It's a well-known fact that many Negro customers are influenced by the opinions of others. What their friends may think of a certain item often decides whether or not the sale is made. So remember, the Negro buys quality merchandise. That's the second important point. And here's the third thing to remember when selling to a Negro customer. When he specifically asks for one thing, don't try to sell him something else. Don't try to switch him at the point of sale. If you do, he'll probably react something like this.
Doesn't he think I've got the money to pay for it?
There's a reason for this reaction. Again, because he's had experience with cheap merchandise, the Negro resents being offered a substitute. He wants to be sold on quality, not price. The Negro buys by brand, he buys quality, and he doesn't like to be switched at point of sale. These are the keys to selling the Negro customer. Another point. The Negro family does things together, as a group. The family works as a unit. It lives as a unit, and it buys as a unit. When you sell to one member, you many times sell to all. It's also true that many places of entertainment are still closed to the Negro. So he spends more of his money for the things that are available to him, often for items that are considered luxuries. Another trait of the Negro market is the fact that it is a pre-sold market. We know that the Negro buys by brand, and he buys the brands that he knows something about. Where does the Negro buyer get this information? We know that Negro customers are turning more and more to the publications that are tailored specifically to their needs, that give them the news and the information that they want to read about. Many leading businessmen and companies already know this. That's why so many of them are taking this direct, sure route of reaching the Negro customer. The vice president of advertising of the Gruen Watch Company, for example, says this.
In many important cities throughout the United States, Negroes are important customers of the credit jeweler. Therefore, it seemed that Ebony magazine would be a very important advertising medium for us. We would say it was very well received, and from our viewpoint, a very successful campaign.
From the Remington Rand Company comes this statement.
Our records show that advertising in Ebony has been effective in many ways. As all good advertising should, it has built a terrific amount of goodwill and has brought a volume of sales and sales inquiries.
A representative of the Alaga Syrup Company makes this statement.
Because of Alaga's regard for the influence of Ebony in the Negro market, advertising space was doubled. Alaga's long experience in selling to Negroes now takes the most direct route to its best customers, reaching Ebony's 2.5 million audience in every issue.
And here are the statements of still other business leaders.
Yes, many business leaders are discovering the most direct and most efficient way of reaching the new Negro market. Look here at the results of the same advertisement in two different publications, Ebony and another general magazine. You can see that proportionately, more men and women read the ad in Ebony than the one in the other magazine. And they did a better job of remembering it, too. A greater percentage of readers noted, associated, and remembered the ad in Ebony. But now, wait a minute. If the Negro market is so big and easy to reach, why aren't more companies going out after it? Well, often because of the feeling that there's something entirely different, unusual about selling to the Negro. But is it really so different? What do salesmen say? The successful salesmen who do a good job of selling in Negro communities. How do you go about getting the order?
How do I get the order? Well, to tell you the truth, I don't do anything. Anything different, that is. I've been calling on these accounts long enough to know that the Negro just wants to be treated like everybody else. No matter who you're calling on, a little friendliness and courtesy help a lot. But naturally, anybody resents being patronized or talked down to. So I usually call a man Mr. Brown, Mr. Smith, or Mr. whatever his name is, until he tells me to call him by his first name. And of course, I always stick to business. I stay away from talk about race or religion or politics. That goes for talk about Negro celebrities, too. You know, this business about what good prize fighters and singers the Negroes are. Who cares? When a guy's in business, no matter what color his skin is, he's interested in making a living, in making money. That's uppermost in his mind. I guess maybe what I'm saying is that I try to help any way I can, sometimes with displays or ad materials, or an idea once in a while. The important thing is that if it helps push sales for the dealer, it helps push them for me, too.
Handle the Negro account just like any of your others. Don't patronize. Stick to business. Get interested in the account. Pitch in and help any way you can. Sounds like pretty good sales advice. That's the secret of selling the Negro. Well, how about it? What do you think of this new market? It can open new outlets for you and for everybody who sells goods or services. It's still possible to get in on the ground floor when this market is just beginning to grow and to expand. The facts and the figures that we see here are just a small sample of what they promise to be next year and the years after that. Yes, here are men and women with money to spend, and they spend it for exactly the same things as you and I and everyone else. They buy almost every type of product and service that you have to offer, and they can be reached like everyone else through publications that appeal to their interests and desires, that deliver the kind of loyal readership that can be proved both in surveys and in down-to-earth sales. Here is a ready-made market waiting to be asked to buy. Here are millions of customers for what you have to sell. Customers with $15 billion to spend.
All right, and we back on the forecast. And if we want to solve our issues, we have to recognize all of our issues, recognize the root of those issues, and figure out how to solve those issues. And at the end of all of that, to protect whatever we build. And as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.